Queen Elizabeth II owned some of the most valuable jewelry on earth for 70 years. Several of her most stunning pieces she never wore even once. One by one, Kate Middleton keeps finding them. Subscribe if you love the real history hiding inside the royal vault. Start with the piece that had jewelry historians convinced was gone forever. The Strathmore Rose Tiara was made in the late 1800s and gifted to Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. Later the Queen Mother by her father in 1923, ahead of her wedding to the future King George VI. It's a garland of diamond wild roses, wearable low across the forehead in 1920s flapper style or high like a traditional crown. The Queen Mother wore it in official portraits through the early 1930s. Then it vanished from public view entirely, with no record of Queen Elizabeth II or any other family member wearing it publicly during her 70-year reign. On November 21, 2023, Kate stepped out for a state banquet honoring South Korea's president wearing that exact piece, nearly a century after it was last seen. Court jeweler expert Lauren Keena told People at the time that Kate has consistently signaled she wants to emulate the Queen Mother's role, and that wearing her jewelry is an important symbol of that continuity. Keena also noted the timing looked deliberate, almost exactly 100 years after the Queen Mother first received it. It was at that point only the fourth tiara Kate had ever worn since marrying William in 2011. That pattern of reviving pieces Elizabeth ignored isn't a one-time coincidence. It's become something close to a signature. Take the Lotus Flower Tiara, sometimes called the Papyrus Tiara. It started life not as a tiara at all, but as a necklace, a wedding gift from the future George VI to the Queen Mother in 1923. Within 6 months, she'd had it dismantled and remade into a tiara by Garrett. It became a favorite of Princess Margaret through the 1960s, and Margaret later loaned it to her daughter-in-law, Serena Stanhope, for her 1993 wedding when Margaret died in 2002. The tiara went back into the vault, and there's no record of Queen Elizabeth II herself ever wearing it publicly at any point in her reign, despite having full access to it for decades. It sat unseen for 11 years until Kate wore it in December 2013 at the Diplomatic Corps reception, then again for a 2015 state banquet honoring China's president, and again in 2022, making it her second most worn tiara to date. Then there's the Nizam of Hyderabad necklace, a piece with a genuinely startling origin story. In 1947, ahead of Princess Elizabeth's wedding, the Nizam of Hyderabad, reportedly one of the wealthiest men alive at the time, gave Cartier in London an open instruction: let the princess choose whatever she wanted. She chose a platinum and diamond necklace with a detachable double-drop pendant and 13 emerald-cut diamonds, today considered one of the most valuable pieces in the entire private royal collection. She wore it often as a young queen through the 1,950 seconds. By the later decades of her reign, she'd stopped almost entirely. In 2014, Kate wore it to her first engagement of the year at the National Portrait Gallery, reviving a piece so significant that jewelry historians describe the moment less as a fashion choice and more as a public signal of trust. The choker story carries the most emotional weight of any of them. In the 1970s, during a state visit to Japan, Elizabeth was presented with a set of fine cultured pearls and had them made into a 4-strand choker by Garrett. By most accounts, she simply preferred necklaces that sat lower and found chokers uncomfortable. She wore this one only a handful of times before setting it aside. In 1982, she loaned it to Princess Diana, who transformed it into one of the defining looks of the decade. After Diana's death, the piece became too closely associated with her memory to be worn casually, and it went back into storage for years. Kate first wore it in 2017, at the Queen and Prince Philip's 70th wedding anniversary dinner, a fairly gentle nod to history. But the moments that actually mattered came later. At Prince Philip's funeral in April 2021, and again at Queen Elizabeth's own state funeral in September 2022, Kate chose that exact choker, a piece the Queen herself had reportedly found physically uncomfortable, worn instead during two of the most difficult, most photographed public moments this family has faced in a decade. Smaller pieces follow the same pattern. The Queen Mother's sapphire and diamond fringe earrings sat unworn for 13 years after Elizabeth inherited them in 2002, reportedly considered too flashy, too jazz age, for the Queen's more conservative later taste. Kate debuted them in 2015 and has made them one of her signature pairings since, worn alongside her own sapphire engagement ring. Even Kate's wedding tiara, the Cartier halo, has this same quiet history behind it. Made in 1936, given to Princess Elizabeth as an 18th birthday present in 1944, and never worn publicly by her even once across her entire reign. It passed instead to her sister Margaret, then to Princess Anne, sitting unused for roughly 40 years before Kate chose it for her 2011 wedding. Here's where it's worth being honest about what's actually confirmed versus what's interpretation. Some royal jewelry historians and commentators have framed this entire pattern as deliberate, a long-term plan, a message from the Queen about legacy and continuity. specific pieces held back on purpose for a future generation. That's a genuinely popular theory in royal watching circles, but it's exactly that, a theory. Nobody can actually confirm what Queen Elizabeth was thinking each time she left a specific tiara in a vault for decades. What can be confirmed, because it's documented in wardrobe records, official portraits, and public appearances, is simpler and in some ways more interesting. There's a real, identifiable group of significant royal jewelry pieces that Elizabeth genuinely never wore, or wore only rarely, for reasons that seem to range from personal comfort to painful memory, to simply not matching her preferred style. And there's an equally real, equally documented pattern of Kate specifically choosing those same overlooked pieces again and again for some of the most significant public moments of her royal life. A state funeral, her own wedding, a diplomatic reception marking the exact 100th anniversary of a gift. Whether that's coincidence, quiet royal guidance passed down through the family, or Kate's own genuine instinct for meaningful history, the jewelry historians themselves don't fully agree. What nobody disputes is the pattern itself, piece by piece, decade by decade, a vault full of jewels the Queen quietly set aside, and a Princess of Wales who keeps finding exactly the right moment to bring them back into the light. If you've noticed this pattern in Kate's jewelry choices, tell me in the comments which piece surprised you most. I read every single one.